The sun blistered the hard-packed earth, heat rising in rippling waves that made even the horizon quiver. Dust clung to sweat-slicked faces as the crowd pressed close, their voices sharp with cruelty, eager for spectacle. At the center of the commotion, shackled and towering above them all, stood the Apache Giantess. Her wrists were rubbed raw from iron cuffs, her hair a black curtain tangled by wind and neglect, her chest rising and falling with slow, heavy breaths meant to disguise the rage burning inside her. She had learned long ago that rage made men laugh. The auctioneer's voice boomed over the crowd, thick with mockery. Too big to breed. Too wild to wed. Worth more on the butcher's block than in a bed. Laughter roared back at him. A boy spat at her feet. A woman crossed herself as if warding off a demon. Men nudged each other, daring one another to touch the freak. The giantess did not flinch. She stood as she had always stood, like a mountain weathering storms, her eyes fixed on a sky so bright it hurt to look at. Her memory betrayed her, pulling her back to another sky, darker, filled with smoke from burning lodges, screams of children scattering through the canyon. She had been captured not as a warrior, but as a daughter running to protect her mother's medicine bundle. Even before that night, whispers had trailed her footsteps. Cursed child. Unfit woman. Too much bone, too much muscle. Her people praised her strength in battle games but mocked her when she towered over the young men meant to court her. The white men had only given those whispers a new, crueler language. Monster. Meat. The auctioneer yanked the chain that tethered her to the block. Let's start the bidding for this fine piece of beef. A man in a blood-stained apron, clearly a butcher, lifted a knife and waved it high. I'll pay $2 to weigh her out right here. A roar of approval surged through the crowd. Another shouted, I'll take the bones for soup stock. Jeers, laughter, clinking coins. The giantess lowered her gaze, not from shame, but calculation. She could snap the chain, crush the skull of the auctioneer, trample through the mob. But then what? A bullet in her back, her body sprawled in the dust, her story ending as nothing but a freak's failed rebellion. Her chest tightened. Her people had already called her cursed. Would dying as slaughterhouse stock prove them right? She clenched her fists until iron bit her palms. The auctioneer raised his gavel. Sold, unless someone's got more than beef money to spend. Before the word could drop, a voice cut clean through the heat and noise. $5. The crowd turned. A man stood at the edge of the platform, dust coating his boots, silver glinting in his hand. He was no rich rancher, no butcher fattened from trade. He carried himself like a drifter, lean, scarred, his hat pulled low. A whisper of surprise rolled through the men. No one wasted good coin on freak shows. 10, he said, throwing another coin, his tone as calm as a man ordering coffee. 15, barked the butcher, eager not to lose. 20, the cowboy replied, not even blinking. The auctioneer's eyes gleamed at the rising silver. The butcher scowled, his bravado shriveling. The cowboy's gaze never left the giantess. It wasn't hunger, nor pity. It was steadiness, like he saw a woman instead of a carcass. Sold. The gavel cracked against wood. The chain was dropped into the cowboy's calloused hands. The crowd erupted with disbelief. He bought himself a monster. Better sleep with one eye open, stranger. She'll crush him in his bed. But the man only tugged gently on the chain, leading her away as jeers followed like a pack of crows. On the edge of town, he stopped and unlocked the cuffs. She flexed her hands, blood rushing back into them. She waited, tense, expecting a trick, some filthy demand, the usual ritual of power. But he simply handed her a strip of jerky from his thul bag. Eat, he said. She narrowed her eyes, suspicious. Poison. Her voice was gravel from disuse. If I wanted you dead, he drawled, I wouldn't waste good beef jerky on it. His mouth twitched, something between a smirk and a tired smile. Against her will, her stomach growled. She tore the meat in half with her teeth, chewing slow, watching him. He studied her scars but did not linger on them like others did. Name's Jack Rawlins, he said. Don't much care what you call yourself. But I reckon you're not fond of steer or beef. She swallowed, her throat aching. They call me monster. Then they're blind, he said. Monster's a choice word for men who fear what they can't own. The fire crackled between them. She should not trust him. Every lesson of survival whispered caution. Yet something in his steady tone pressed against the wall she had built around her heart. He leaned back against his saddle, eyes closing as though unbothered by having a giantess beside him. Later that night, as the flames guttered low, she turned her gaze to the stars. Her thoughts circled like vultures. Was this stranger fool or savior? Did he buy her to save her, or simply to use her differently? She pressed her palm against her chest, feeling the hammering of her heart. It was not hope, not yet. But for the first time in years, the thought crept in, perhaps her story did not end on a butcher's block. Perhaps it had only begun. Sleep came fitful, shadowed by dreams of knives and laughter. But when she woke before dawn, Jack was already saddled, waiting. He tipped his hat. Ready. She hesitated, then climbed onto the horse he had prepared for her, an animal nearly as large as she, but still shivering under her weight. She steadied it with a whisper, a skill from her people. The horse calmed, ears flicking. Jack raised an eyebrow but said nothing. They rode in silence, the desert unfolding in hues of gold and crimson. Behind them, the town shrank, and with it the voices that had called her meat, monster, freak. Ahead stretched the unknown. Fear still coiled inside her, but for the first time, fear did not feel like a chain. She glanced at the man riding beside her. His eyes scanned the horizon, sharp and wary, yet calm. He carried secrets, she could sense them. Wounds unseen. She wondered what kind of man would spend silver on saving a woman the world despised. The sun climbed higher, burning away shadows. The chain no longer clinked against her wrists. She flexed her hands in the light, scarred but free. The journey had begun, though neither of them knew where it would lead. Only that it would not return them to the block. And in that small truth, the giantess felt something stir inside her chest, something perilously close to hope. Night fell sharp and cold, stars glittering above like shards of ice. The fire sputtered between them, a fragile circle of warmth against the immensity of desert silence. Jack's shoulders slumped with the weariness of travel, yet his gaze never drifted from the dark horizon. She noticed how his hand lingered near the butt of his revolver, as if expecting the shadows themselves to spit bullets. The giantess listened, her ears tuned to every rustle of sagebrush, every distant coyote cry. Something gnawed at the air, uneasy, unfinished. By morning, the unease proved itself real. Tracks on the ridge told of pursuit. Hoofprints overlapped, fresh and heavy, too many for mere travelers. She crouched by the trail, her fingers brushing the indentations in the soil. The image formed clearly in her mind, men with guns, anger burning hotter than the sun, riding hard to reclaim what they believed stolen. She rose, her jaw tightening. They follow. Jack gave a short nod, not surprised. Figures. Men hate being laughed at. Buying you in front of them cut deep. He spat into the dirt, then swung onto his horse. Best move quick. The chase began with a rising storm of dust. Riders crested the hills behind them, shouting insults, firing wild shots that cracked the morning stillness. The giantess urged her horse forward, the animal straining beneath her size yet matching the urgency of her will. Jack rode close beside, his rifle barking in reply, each shot measured, precise. The air grew sharp with the stink of gunpowder, the whistle of lead whipping past their ears. The terrain turned treacherous, jagged canyons, sudden gullies, boulders that shattered hoofpits into echoes. The giantess clenched her jaw, every muscle coiled, her body straining to stay balanced. She heard the men behind, their laughter rising with cruel delight as they closed the gap. One bullet grazed her arm, searing flesh. She did not cry out, only pressed forward harder, blood slick against her skin. Then the ground betrayed them. Jack's horse stumbled on a loose stone, collapsing with a scream. He rolled free but not far enough, the beast's weight trapped his leg beneath it. The mob drew nearer, triumphant, circling like vultures. Jack cursed, struggling to free himself, revolver clutched but useless against the numbers bearing down. The giantess turned back. For one instant, fear rooted her, a lifetime of chains and jeers whispering that she should flee, leave him as others had left her. But another voice surged louder, the one buried deep, the one her people had tried to silence. Strength was not curse but gift. She dismounted, seized the horse's heaving flank, and with a guttural roar lifted the massive animal enough for Jack to crawl free. His eyes widened in awe, a flash of astonishment breaking through the grit of survival. "You saved my hide," he breathed, staggering upright. She wiped blood from her arm, lips curling into the faintest grin. Better hide than meat. The humor, raw and unlikely, sparked between them even in the chaos. Jack laughed once, sharp and short, before raising his rifle again. Together they fought, her hurling stones with terrifying precision, him firing round after round. Dust boiled, horses reared, men cursed. The mob faltered, shaken by the fury of a woman they had thought destined for slaughter. As dusk bled across the sky, they found refuge in the shell of an abandoned church. Its roof sagged, its walls bore bullet holes from some forgotten skirmish, yet within its ruined silence flickered a sanctuary. They barred the doors with splintered pews, their breaths ragged, bodies battered but alive. The giantess pressed her back against the altar, her arm throbbing from the wound, yet her spirit burned hotter than the pain. In the wavering glow of a candle Jack lit, his face softened. He unwrapped a strip of cloth and bound her arm, his hand steady despite the tremor of exhaustion. "Never seen anyone do what you did back there," he murmured. "Horse must have weighed near 1,000 pounds." She met his gaze. "Strength is all I ever had. They called it curse. Maybe today, it was salvation." For a moment, silence wrapped them. He set the candle on the altar, shadows stretching long. Then his voice lowered, almost confessional. "Lost my wife 3 winters ago. Fever took her quick. I've been drifting ever since. Couldn't stay still, couldn't face the emptiness of the ranch. I thought I was finished." He glanced at her, eyes reflecting flame. "But then I saw you on that block. Not a monster. A woman fighting to keep standing when the world tried to break her. Reminded me of something I'd forgotten, that strength can be more than survival. It can be hope." Her throat tightened, words clawing to be spoken but too raw. She managed only, "Hope is dangerous." "Maybe," he said, voice firm. "But it's the only thing that keeps a man moving forward." The sound of horses shattered their quiet. The mob had found them. Torches flared outside, voices thick with venom. "Come out, beef woman. We'll carve you fresh." The church walls glowed with firelight, each crack in the wood spilling their hatred inside. Jack cocked his rifle, jaw set. "We're outnumbered." She rose, towering, her silhouette cutting against the flicker. For the first time, she did not bow her head beneath their insults. She stepped forward, voice thundering through the church. "You want your meat? Then face me." She seized a splintered beam, hefting it like a spear. The doors splintered. The mob poured in, wild-eyed and snarling. Chaos ignited. Jack fired, each shot a crack of defiance. She swung the beam, scattering men like dry stalks. Blood, sweat, smoke choked the air. A torch struck the wall, flames leaping. Amid the blaze, she roared, not with shame but with power, every insult she had swallowed now unleashed. Men shrank back, their bravado crumbling before the storm of her strength. When the last of them fled into the night, the church smoldered, its rafters glowing red. She stood in the ruin, chest heaving, eyes shining with something new. Jack leaned against a broken pew, bruised and bleeding, yet smiling through the grime. "World called you a monster," he rasped. "To me, you're a miracle." The words pierced deeper than any knife, not because they flattered but because they named what she had never dared believe. She looked down at her scarred hands, then at him, then at the burning doorway where dawn's first light crept through smoke. The world might still spit its curses, still hunger for her ruin, but in that moment she knew the truth. She was no carcass, no freak. She was alive, unbroken, and chosen, not by pity, but by recognition. They stepped from the ruins together, the morning sun spilling across them, painting the desert in gold. Behind lay ashes, ahead uncertainty. Yet for the first time, the path forward did not seem endless or cruel. It seemed theirs. And if the world came hunting again, it would learn what the butcher's block never could, that some spirits cannot be carved, sold, or silenced.